Hello, this is a quick review of Learning Target 1.4, which says I can locate real numbers on a number line. So what you're given is you're given a list of numbers and you want to rewrite them on the number line. You have to create your own scale as well. What I would do first is I would rewrite them all as in decimal, just like we did with Learning Target 1.3. Just rewrite them as to decimal form, like 2/3 is going to be 0.6 repeating. Negative, that's already in decimal form. Square root of 5. Square root of 5 will be, or negative square root of 5 will be a negative 2.23 about. Then we have a negative 2.7. Square root of 10 is positive 3.16 about. And then the absolute value of negative 2 is just a positive 2. So there I have my numbers. It looks like I could go from about, I could go negative 5 to positive 5. So I'm just going to list my numbers on the number line, starting from least to greatest. So I start with my negatives, go to my positives. Alright, so now I have my number line created. I'm going to place the following numbers on there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my smallest number, which looks like it's a negative 4.1. And I'm going to plot that on the number line, and then I'm going to rewrite it as the original number. And the original is already negative 4.1, so we're good there. Okay, done with that. Next smallest number is going to be the larger negative, so negative 2.7. That's going to be about right there. And I rewrite it as the original, which is still negative 2.7. Next one is going to be negative square root of 5, which is negative 2.23, so it's going to be about there. And I'm going to rewrite it as my original, so a negative square root of 5. Good, moving down the list. Looks like next is 2/3, so it's going to be between 0 and 1, right over there. Rewrite it as 2/3. Next one is the absolute value of negative 2, which is positive 2. So I rewrite it as the absolute value of negative 2, and then we've got the square root of 10, which is about 3.16. Rewrite as the original, and then last one, 4.1. So I rewrite the original there. Okay, so now I have my numbers listed from least to greatest on the number line, and I rewrote the original. So that's what you'll need to do for that part of the learning target. Number 2 says, between which two integers would you place the square root of 75? And then it says, how do you know this without a calculator? Well, square roots, a big important part of this with square roots is perfect squares, because the square root is saying, like, what number multiplied by itself equals 75? 75 isn't a perfect square, but we can kind of figure out what two integers it's going to be between. In order to do that, I'm going to list out my perfect squares so we can kind of have an idea of what it will be. So what you do is you square each number, like 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 4, 3 squared is 9, 4 squared is 16. I'm just going to keep going. 25. 36, getting a little sloppy, 49, 8 squared is 64, 9 squared is 81, and 10 squared is 100. So what I just wrote down, this is my list of perfect squares. We could take the square root of that and get a whole number when we get the product of that. So what we want to figure out is what two integers is the square root of 75 between. If you look at our list, it looks like 75 is going to come between 64 and 81, if you think of it in that sense. So like the square root of 64 is going to be 8. The square root of 75, we don't know that quite sure yet, but then the next perfect square is the square root of 81. Well, the square root of 81 is 9. So we know that the square root of 75 is going to be between those two, perfect squares. So we know it's going to be between 8 and 9. So then that's how we can tell. We can write it will be between 8 and 9. And then I want you guys to give me, explain how would you know this without a calculator. List out the perfect squares. Figure out what number it's closer to. You can guess and check by multiplying. Try to get as close as you can to that number, the square root of 75.